then that space in between the planets is what the Toltecs call the Nahual. Now, what gives life to the Nahual, which is light, and what gives life to the Tonal, which is matter, is what they call intent. And intent is a force that moves everything and put everything together. I call it life. The Toltecs know that the space in between planets there was not empty. It's full of light. There's no space in the entire universe of change of universe who is empty. In between atoms, in between stars, in between planets, always exists light.
What the quantum hologram is, it's based on the well-known fact that matter emits and reabsorbs quanta of energy, photons, at the most basic level of nature. And that those photons have a non-local interconnection, regardless of where they go thereafter. They are interconnected. Take the quantum emissions from any body of matter, from a human to a chair to anything, that you study it as a group, it is carrying unique information in the event history of that object. Wow, this is a rather fundamental discovery, because it is saying that information at the quantum level in nature is as important as in energy itself. What the physicists tell us is that when particles are entangled in a process at the subatomic level, and they go across the universe from each other, should they maintain a correlation, a coherence. And if something happens to one particle, it is instantaneously known or recognized by the other particle, regardless of where they are in the universe. That's instantaneous communication. That's called non-locality.
How would one experience that subjectively? What is your subjective experience of non-locality? Many people experience it as an out-of-body state, an out-of-body situation. We've heard about this when we think of a near-death experience. People seem to float out or perceive themselves to be some way distant from the physical body. The question comes up, is there then a separate body or a second body? Many people have a philosophic opinion that there is a spirit body or a soul. The physicists would reflect back and say, well, we don't have any measurement or proof of that, so the in-between road might be a habit. I'm in the habit of feeling myself in this body, and when I become non-locally aware, a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience, as a habit, I think I have a body, but perhaps it really isn't. Perhaps I am more than that, more than the concepts of a body. If we can become aware of information that's not available to the physical senses, it's available only if we are non-locally aware. Something in the future, something in the past, something distant in space from us, something that we couldn't know with our physical senses, and that information comes to us, therein lies the proof. How else could we possibly know this but that we were more than our physical bodies?
In quantum physics, not only is it not considered to be crazy, it's considered to be a way to understand the nature of the real reality, the so-called real reality that we're in. And it's used every day. In fact, a whole new field is developed based upon this idea called quantum computers and quantum computation. And in the years to come, we're going to see more and more of this new idea emerging, and parallel realities are even going into them and taking a photograph and bringing it back out again. That may not be science fiction. That may be something we're going to be doing soon. So I think right now this is an exciting time to be thinking about the relationship of mind and consciousness to quantum physics.
So there is the ability for energy to exist outside of time and space. The spiritual realm essentially has no time frame. The time frame exists here on Earth. The spiritual realm exists outside of a time frame. It's very hard to interrelate what happens in the spiritual realm and what happens in the earthly realm. So then people ask about a life between lives regression. They'll say, I desire to have an LBL regression, but which between life am I going to visit?
Well, one alternative is to say they're in alternative realities or worlds or universes even, and that these are there, but they're parallel and invisible to us, because once we've chosen to see reality one way, it gets blocked from us to see this other way. It's like blinders that get put on. We can't see the other reality. But in the other reality, the same thing is going on. We can't see the world that we're in, because in the other reality, we're seeing that world. And so these parallel realities are also all occurring simultaneously. Now that idea sounds like almost hokum, and I can't blame anybody for saying, oh, it's crazy. How can you have so many realities?
When we travel into the spiritual realm, into the between life, in an LBL regression, we basically, all of our between lives collapse into one another, if you will, and we step into what we often call now time. So we're learning about our spiritual experiences based on what is happening presently in our earthly life. The spirit world is the spirit world in the sense that we have many belief structures that say the spirit world is segmented. There's a positive place and a not so positive place. That kind of information has never come through in thousands of life between life regressions. And so the spirit world is open to anyone and everyone. We are not blocked at a certain point and disallowed entry depending on what we have or haven't done in our life. The spirit world does appear different, regression to regression. For some souls, particularly for souls who are not of high level of experience, there is almost a meeting place that exists. It reminds me of a train or a bus station where when the soul has left the body, and it comes in to spend time as it's crossing over. There's often a sort of a meeting place where the soul can be met by loved ones, where the soul is assisted in orienting, in adjusting to being in the spiritual realm. It's almost slowing down the process of moving into the spiritual realm.
We have what we call focus levels, and we refer to them as focus levels, different states of consciousness, as numbers. And we simply do that so there's no attachment, through words or whatever. It's just levels. We found a place that we call Focus 27. Now my father refers to this as the park. And it was a place he found in his explorations, which is very much like Earth in a lot of ways. You can actually feel the grass and the trees and everything. And it feels very real, but he called it a park. And we've found that there's a healing and regeneration center there. There's a planning center there. It's an incredible place, if you will.
Well, Focus 27 is a state that many different systems and religions would refer to as heaven. It is certainly one heaven, state where of great joy. It's a state that offers an opportunity for amazing learnings and insight into, and not only insight into, but participation in planning how things might unfold both here on the earth, in individual lives, in other parts of the physical and non-physical world.
We all have soul groups consisting of 3 to 10 or 12 members that are together because we all have something in common. And that's a good question to ask. What is it that brings you all together? What are you doing together in the spirit world? And usually people are very clear about that. And it may be that they're doing work together, or they may be working on similar lessons together.
Went through, immediately my guides were there. Immediately. I didn't go into any chambers, I didn't have any cleansing. My guides were like, what's up, we're glad you're here. And it was literally like, sit down and have a powwow. That was what my whole entire Life Between Life session consisted of. The therapist that I was working with had a lot of interaction with my guides. Apparently they were very high vibrational, enlightened teachers, and they shared a lot of information with her. I kind of acted as a channel to share that information, to have it come through. And most of the information that was covered was specific stuff for me. No predictions of any sort, but getting in, connecting to what was the intention that I had stated for myself. What did I want to experience? What did I come here for?
And the first person that appeared to my right was my son Scott. And Scott was like my soulmate. He was a real old soul. He was 27 years old when he passed away, but had lived such a full life, and it was just really powerful to have such a vivid feeling of being there with him.
Even though nothing frightening ever happens there, souls always feel a sense of intimidation, I guess I would say, when they're called before what we have termed a council of elders or a council of wise beings. And their guide usually accompanies them, and they are almost always in a building or a space that seems very formal. And a group of 5, 6, or maybe even 10 elders come in, and they ask questions, and always in the most loving way the person is given some suggestions about how they might proceed as further in the next life and how they can do better. And it's a very serious meeting, but it's not punitive or judgmental in the way that we might think.
The coordinating body of the spiritual realm is comprised of souls that have finished their incarnation on earth. They've progressed to a particular level. They then work at, we use these words higher, lower, and it's hard not to use those words. They work at a higher level of wisdom, but they are ultimately coordinated by a highest level of wisdom that we all choose to label in different ways. But as we progress as a soul, we fine-tune our interest area, we fine-tune our abilities. And then we can, in fact, progress to the point where we don't spend a great deal of time with our cluster group any longer, and we then can spend primarily time with a group that is much more specialized.
Just before I left, left the soul group, I felt like somebody had placed a hand on my forehead. And I, again felt this amazing energy, and I said, I think they're just knocking in a little extra knowledge into my head and just I'm being healed of anything that I needed to be healed of, as far as some of the experiences that I had experienced in my current incarnation.